He was a pathetic loser who watched anime all day long, but after joining the army, he saves the world from invasion by magical creatures. Itami is a lonely weeb in his 30s who works in the Japanese army in order to buy his anime waifu body pillows. One day, while on the way to an anime convention, a mysterious gate opens, releasing countless terrifying mythical creatures like dragons, armored knights, and elves. They start creating havoc in the city, rampaging and tearing through the high-rise buildings. The city falls into a state of panic, and the military turns up to control the situation. Soon, military helicopters start shooting at the fire dragons while the ground force deals with the knights and elves. In the middle of the chaos, Itami worries that his precious convention will be cancelled if this goes on for too long, so he quickly takes control and runs off to save the panicking people. He uses a spare knife to stab a knight who was attacking a police officer. Then he starts guiding the locals and tourists into the royal palace, and once everyone is safe, he joins the defense forces and jumps into a fierce battle against the mythical creatures. Little does anybody realize that Itami belongs to an elite group of soldiers who are specially trained to be modeled after the US Army's Green Berets and Delta forces. Several days after the incident, Itami is promoted to the rank of first lieutenant for his act of bravery. He receives recognition from the government of Japan for fighting alongside the Japanese defense forces to capture the strange invaders and help prevent significant danger in Ginza region. However, the threat of another invasion is far from being resolved because the gate is still open and the two worlds can collide anytime. The Japanese government decides to send a team through the gate to explore the other world and uncover the mysteries that lie. Itami, a slacker who is more interested in anime and manga events than military duty, finds himself part of this special defense force team. Despite his carefree attitude, his military training and his deep knowledge of historical and fantasy characters from anime and manga make him a perfect fit for the mission. 3 months later, with tanks, troops, and heavy equipment, the special force prepares to enter the mysterious gate. But once they cross into the other world, they're greeted by an eerie, deserted landscape with nothing but barren land as far as the eye can see. At first, the team is confused, struggling to make sense of their surroundings. But little do they know that they've just stepped into a world full of dragons, magic, and mythical creatures hiding in the shadows, waiting to reveal their true dangers. Upon learning of the Japanese army's arrival through the gate, the mystical Imperial capital quickly falls into a state of alert. The king, concerned about the unknown threat, calls for an urgent royal meeting with his ministers to discuss the situation and come with a plan of action. Marquis Casel, the royal minister, accuses the king of being responsible for the death of more than half of their royal army. In response, Emperor Molt swiftly defends his position, declaring that he will not stand idly by while an unknown kingdom's military camps near the gate and orders that they will engage in battle. Even though Minister Castle warns that a battle will cause bloodbath, the king orders his ministers to send representatives to nearby kingdoms, asking for their help to protect the continent from the unknown invaders from the other world. Meanwhile, the tribal kingdoms hear about the arrival of the Japanese army and quickly call a meeting with their commanders. When the leaders of Duran ask about the Imperial army, the representative of Emperor Molt lies, saying that the Imperial forces are fighting the enemy at Arnus Hill and can't join them. However, Lord Duran, the military commander of the tribal army, is not convinced as he hasn't seen many enemies at Arnus Hill. The Emperor's representative pushes for an attack on the enemy at sunrise the next day. As soon as the order is given, chaos breaks out in the camp with each commander eager to be on the front lines. However, Lord Duran senses the danger of the upcoming battle and decides to keep his men in the backlines, away from the immediate fight. The next day, the commanders of the Alguna and Mudwin armies tell Lord Duran that they are ready to attack, but they still cannot see the Imperial army. So they start marching towards the Japanese forces, but before they can launch their attack, the Japanese army strikes first. They drop air bombs and missiles on the enemy, killing and injuring about 10,000 soldiers in just one attack. After this, the Japanese army begins a second attack, which wipes out another 40,000 soldiers, leaving the enemy's forces in chaos. At night, the military commanders gather in the camps again and ask Lord Duran if they should back out from the battle because they have lost more than half of their soldiers and 2 important military leaders. Lord Duran replies that it's too late to escape, and he will not back off until he takes revenge for his dead comrades. He plans on invading the military base at night, but the Japanese army takes them by surprise when they launch a brutal attack on them with missiles and rockets. In this massive combat, Lord Duran gets brutally injured and the Japanese special forces manage to kill more than 60,000 soldiers again. Soon, the Emperor learns that the tribal armies have been defeated and are retreating to their villages. In a cruel move, he orders his minister to poison their wells and burn their homes, ensuring that the tribes have no resources left. This way, the tribes will be left powerless and unable to rise up against the Emperor again. Suddenly, the king's daughter, Princess Pinya, rushes into the royal court and accuses the king of their army's defeat on the Arnus Hill. But to shut her mouth, the king asks her to take a few soldiers with her and look out for the enemy camps. The next day, the special defense forces are assigned to learn more about the enemy's kingdom and its way of life. To carry out this task, Itami is appointed as the leader of his platoon, and they head to the villages to interact with the locals and build friendly relations. As they make their way to the last village in the evening, they are shocked to see the forest, where the settlements are located, engulfed in massive fire. Thick black smoke fills the sky, and as Itami looks closer, he spots a gigantic red dragon setting the forest ablaze. After the dragon leaves, Itami orders his comrades to help put out the fire and search for any survivors. But when they reach the village, they discover that everyone has died in the flames. After this exhausting mission, Itami approaches a nearby well to draw some water, but as he lowers the bucket, it hits the bottom with a thud. When they look inside, they are horrified to find an unconscious elf girl lying at the bottom of the well. Without wasting any time, Itami quickly lowers himself into the well with the help of his platoon members and rescues the unconscious elf girl. Once she is safely pulled out, the medics immediately take her to a nearby tent to assess her condition. They start checking her vitals, carefully monitoring her body temperature and breathing. Meanwhile, Itami and one of his comrades wait outside, sitting quietly and anxiously, hoping for good news. As they wait, Itami notices that his comrade seems unusually excited, a faint blush creeping across his face. Itami, always quick with a teasing remark, asks if he has developed a special interest in elves. His comrade, embarrassed, is about to answer when a medic suddenly bursts out of the tent, interrupting their conversation. The medic informs them that the elf girl's body temperature is slowly returning to normal, and that she is no longer in mortal danger. This news brings a wave of relief to Itami and his comrade. The medic, however, still seems uncertain about what to do next. She turns to Itami and asks what they should do with the elf girl now that she is stable. Without hesitation, Itami replies that given the destruction caused by the fire, they cannot simply leave her behind to die. Since her settlement has been wiped out, the elf girl would have no place to go. Itami suggests they take her back with them as a refugee. The medic agrees without hesitation and quickly begins preparing for the elf girl's transport, and the team is ready to move forward, determined to ensure her safety. On their way to Arnus Station, Itami and his team decide to stop by Kota village before returning to their military base. After some time, they arrive at the peaceful and beautiful village where Itami quickly meets with the village elders and tells them about the fire in the forest and how the nearby settlements were completely destroyed. He also explains that the creature behind this terrible incident was a fire dragon that burned everything in its path. Thankfully, they managed to save an elf girl from the disaster. But when Itami asks if the elf girl can stay in the village, the elder sadly refuses. He explains that they cannot take in an elf, and besides, the villagers are preparing to leave as soon as possible to escape the fire dragon themselves. When Itami asks for the reason, the village headman replies that once the fire dragon tastes the flesh of humans or elves, it will keep attacking villages and towns. Meanwhile, on the borders of the Kota village, there is a house of the wizard named Kato, who is also trying to flee the village with his student Lily. But they have a small carriage which can't carry all the magic books of the wizard, so Lily suggests only carrying the important ones. Soon, they start with their journey and reach the Kota village where the villagers are all set to escape the village. But the wizard and his students soon learn that one of the carts is carrying too much weight and therefore its axle broke down, so Itami and his soldiers are trying to help with the carriage. Lele has never seen soldiers wearing strange costumes, so she quickly jumps off the carriage and runs towards Itami to have a closer look at him and his comrades. But before she can reach Itami, she comes across a half-conscious girl who is being treated by the medics on Itami's team. She is fascinated by these strange people, but suddenly a horse goes wild and jumps on its hind heels, ready to crush Lele, but one of the soldiers shoots it down. A frightened Lele realizes that she has been saved by these strange people and her respect for them increases. Later, one of Itami's men worriedly asks if they would have to take care of these homeless villagers, since no royalty or army is coming for their rescue. Itami replies that he has learned from the village heads that none of their military commanders returned home after they were sent to fight the Japanese special forces at Arnus Hill. The next morning, Itami and his platoon are on a journey with the villagers to find a suitable place for them to settle down. One of the comrades asks Itami how long will the villagers be on the run. Itami replies that they are going to keep running until they are sure that the fire dragon is not coming. He adds that the refugees go through the same fate in any part of the world. After walking for some time, another carriage breaks down, so the village headman asks the owner to carry whatever he can and continue walking because they can't afford to stay there for long. Surprisingly, Itami orders his platoon to burn the carriage, and when one of the medics angrily confronts him, he calmly replies that he has done this to keep everyone safe. He says that the family whose carriage broke down was not willing to move forward, and he can't afford to call for a backup vehicle because they are way past the front lines. and the enemy might attack them if they call for backup here, which will lead to a huge battle, and the poor villagers will get caught in the crossfire, and an unplanned combat will lead to a huge loss of life and property. Suddenly, the driver informs Itami and a few creatures are coming their way. Itami quickly grabs his binoculars and notices a flock of crows flying their way. But when he looks closer, he is shocked to see a pretty gothic Lolita girl standing among them. A character just like the ones he often sees in his favorite anime and manga. Seeing her, a bunch of village kids jump out of the jeep and happily run towards her. Even though Itami can't understand her language, he can make out that the Lolita girl is very friendly with the kids. The kids inform her that they are escaping the village because of the threat of the fire dragon. The girl curiously looks at Itami and walks closer to his jeep, looking in awe at the strange vehicle and a strange group of people sitting inside it. The kids reassure her that Itami and his comrades are good people because they have helped them escape the fire dragon. So in a flirtatious tone, she asks Itami to let her ride the vehicle too, but Itami can barely understand the language and looks at her like a wimp. Without any warning, the girl jumps inside the jeep and makes herself comfortable over Itami's lap, while poor Itami is nervously holding his breath. His comrades look at them in bewilderment, but the Lolita girl is having fun teasing Itami, while he helplessly keeps asking her to get off him. After driving for some time, the driver informs Itami that they have reached Arnus Hill, which means that they are pretty far from the village. Itami looks out from the window of the jeep to check on the villagers behind them, but he feels that the weather is turning hotter and more uncomfortable. As he looks closely at the sun, he sees a shadow of a dragon flying towards them, and a frightened Itami screams on top of his lungs. But suddenly, the small dragon is eaten up by an even bigger dragon, and to their horror, it turns out that the bigger creature is the fire dragon. The dragon starts breathing fire on the villagers and their belongings, making them run for their lives. Chaos erupts on the hill as villagers start running in fear in order to save themselves from the bloodthirsty dragon. The dragon breaks the carriages, chases the kids, and starts setting everything on fire. Itami quickly gets back to his senses and orders his platoon to divert the attention of the dragon so he can shoot at it. He soon starts attacking the dragon with his machine gun, but the dragon breathes a fire towards them, making Itami realize that they don't stand a chance against the dragon's beastly flames. Hearing loud noises and gunshots, the elf girl wakes up and quickly asks Itami to target the dragon's eyes, and Itami quickly orders his platoon to aim for the eye of the dragon. Soon, a grenade is launched towards the dragon's eye, but almost misses it. So the Lolita girl jumps out of the jeep and uses her weapon to attack the dragon. Her bold move buys enough time for the grenade to hit its target. Soon the missile strikes the dragon, causing it to roar in pain before it disappears into the skies. After dealing with the dragon, the soldiers bury the bodies of the dead villagers and offer prayers for their well-being. Soon, Itami turns around to see a little girl sobbing over the death of her parents, so he consoles her. Later, a platoon member tells Itami that some of the villagers are going to stay at their relatives' homes nearby, while the others will find a place at a nearby town or village. Itami walks towards the village elder and asks him about the orphan children, but the village elder coldly replies that they can't afford to take care of them because they have to look after themselves too. So a kind Itami decides to take the orphan kids with him to the Arnus base camp, and everyone looks at him with happy smiles. The elf girl is haunted by a nightmare, reliving the day her peaceful forest village was destroyed by the fire dragon. In her dreams, she remembers her father worriedly carrying her to the village well and dropping her inside to keep her safe from the fiery chaos. She wakes up with a jolt, looking around in panic, but quickly calms down when she realizes she's with Itami and his squad of heroes. Soon they reach Arnus Hill, and Itami's superior scolds him for bringing a bunch of orphans to the camp, and Itami casually asks if it was a bad idea to bring the abandoned children. The officer replies that it definitely was a bad idea. In Japan, the commander receives a detailed report from the Special Defense Forces about the progress in the mythical kingdom. One of the main challenges Itami and his team face is the language barrier, as the locals speak a completely different tongue. Despite this, the team has managed to make peaceful connections with several villages. They've learned that each village is led by a headman, but the larger political structure of the kingdom remains unclear. The kingdom relies heavily on farming, and most of the people there are human, just like those in Japan, which gives them some common ground. What catches the commander's attention is the news that Itami has brought along a group of orphan children. While this might seem like an odd move, the commander sees it as an opportunity. He decides to bring the children to Japan through the gate. By studying their language, behavior, and customs, they hope to gain a deeper understanding of the kingdom's culture and way of life. This information could help improve communication and aid in building trust between the two worlds. The commander believes that this step is essential for forming a stronger connection and ensuring peaceful interactions in the future. On the other side of the gate, Itami Sr. doesn't tell him about the commander's plan and simply orders him to take care of the refugees himself and keep them under observation. A tired Itami walks out of the senior's cabin and instructs his comrades to take care of different tasks. Kurdobayashi and Kurokawa have to get food from the mess. Kurata and Tamada have to get tents from the engineer at the post, while he will handle the paperwork. Saying this, Itami dismisses everyone and starts walking with his head down. But suddenly, Lieutenant Yanagita, his former comrade, asks him to come along with him to the rooftop. He quickly asks Itami if he deliberately lost the dragon and brought the refugees with him because he is a softy at heart, but Itami nervously denies, saying that it was because of the change in the atmospheric condition of this place. In a serious tone, Yanagata tells him that this place is a special treasure for them because it is an inhabitable land with many resources and no pollution. This place even has mineral deposits that will help develop their economy in Japan. But the government doesn't know much about this, and they don't know how to deal with this region. He looks at Itami and asks if this special region is worth turning half the world against them. This region can be a chance for them to cut themselves off from Japan and start a new life here, but they still have to think about that. He declares that Itami will be given much more freedom to act according to his wishes because he is the one who has brought in the refugees and has a deeper connection with the people here. The next day, Itami gathers all the refugees and asks them to introduce themselves to put their names in the register. Then he orders his men to build houses for the refugees and asks the refugees to head inside the camps because the bulldozers and cranes are dangerous. Soon it's time for lunch and all the refugees gather around a table filled with delicious food. The wizard Kato screams in joy after eating a piece of Japanese bread, while his assistant Lele curiously looks around the table and tries to learn the name of different food items. She quickly folds her hands to say a prayer because she has seen the special defense soldiers doing that before they eat. After several days of effort, Itami finally manages to arrange hot baths for both the men and women in the special region. This small luxury becomes a huge morale booster for the refugees and soldiers alike, offering them a rare moment of peace and relief from the ongoing stress of their lives. The baths quickly turn into a favorite spot for everyone, where they can relax, chat, and feel a sense of normalcy despite the challenges of the mythical world around them. One evening, Lily, the elf girl, and the gothic priestess, Rory, find themselves soaking in the women's bath together. As they talk, Tuka learns for the first time that it was Itami who saved her life. Flustered and overwhelmed, she expresses her desire to repay him and the others for their kindness. However, her guilt for not doing so sooner quickly shows and she lowers her head in shame. Rory, ever playful and also wise, reassures Tuka with a warm smile. She reminds her that everyone living here has lost something, whether family, friends, or homes, and that kindness in such times doesn't come with strings attached. Rory's words comfort Tuka, helping her find peace amidst her lingering sadness. Soon, Lele tells them that she is learning the language of the Special Defense Forces and continues to tell them about a few things she's got to know. The soldiers in Special Defense Forces are warriors from a country called Japan. And beyond the gate, there are other countries besides Japan and a whole new world that they know nothing about. In another part of the kingdom, Princess Pinya visits Lord Duran, who is lying in a bed, severely wounded from the recent battle with the Japanese army. His right hand and foot have been cut off, and his once gigantic figure is now reduced to a vulnerable and helpless state. As the princess enters the room, she informs Duran that she came in search of information about Arnus Hill. She had heard rumors from various sources that a high-ranking individual was being treated at the inn, and her interest was piqued. However, Lord Duran is immediately taken aback by her lack of awareness regarding the events that happened a few months back. He asks her how she could have failed to receive any updates on what happened there. Pinya, surprised by his accusation, admits that she had no knowledge of the situation and was unaware of the severity of the situation at Arnus Hill. With growing frustration, Duran reveals the truth behind the events and tells the princess that the emperor was fully aware of the threat posed by the allied armies. Instead of directly confronting this danger, the emperor devised a plan to use the Japanese forces to eliminate the allied armies, knowing full well the risks involved. Duran makes it clear that the true enemy is not the Japanese army, but rather the emperor and his hidden agenda. According to Duran, the emperor had long known that the allied forces posed a significant challenge to the empire, and in order to eliminate this threat, he used the Japanese forces as a pawn in a larger game. This revelation sends shockwaves through the princess. She had always held her father in high regard, believing in the righteousness of his decisions and the empire's noble cause. Now she was faced with the harsh reality that her father might have been manipulating events for his own political gain, using the war as a means to secure his power and eliminate potential threats. The weight of the truth begins to settle on Princess Pinya as she listens to Duran's words. She is shaken by the possibility that her father, the emperor, may not have been the benevolent ruler she had always believed him to be. Instead of protecting the kingdom from outside invaders, it seems that the emperor had his own plans for the future, and those plans may have involved sacrificing the lives of many in order to solidify his position of power. Durin, bitter and disillusioned, tells the princess that if she truly seeks to understand what happened at Arnus Hill and the extent of her father's betrayal, then she must visit the site herself. Only then will she be able to see firsthand the damage done and the truth behind the Emperor's actions. Durin's cold tone leaves the princess with a heavy heart, unsure of what she will discover when she journeys to Arnus Hill. As Pina leaves Lord Duran's bedside, her mind is filled with turmoil, and she is caught between her loyalty to her father and the unsettling realization that everything she thought she knew about her kingdom may have been a lie. Duran's words continue to echo in her head as she begins to question her role in the Empire and whether she can still trust those around her. The princess walks out of the inn and tells her comrades that they should visit Arnus and orders her assistant Norma to ask the main unit to march towards the hill. Meanwhile, Itami is fully absorbed in his manga world, happily lost in a web novel, enjoying every page as if he has forgotten the real world. He's so engrossed in his fantasy escape that he doesn't even notice the others around him. However, his peace is soon interrupted when the medic and Kurabayashi, both looking seriously concerned, kick him in the butt to snap him out of his manga trance. The medic has something important to report. He informs Itami that the elf girl Chuka has been acting strangely over the last few days. It seems that Chuka is asking for double portions of everything like food, water, even clothes. At first it didn't seem unusual, but there's a twist. Chuka always keeps one portion completely untouched, while she uses the other for herself. No one knows why. To make things more confusing, she keeps asking for one portion specifically for a man, but the team can't figure out who this man is or why she insists on this. The language barrier is also making it difficult to understand Chuka's behavior. Since she isn't fluent in Japanese, she can't fully explain herself to the team. Even the wizard Kato, who has some knowledge of elves, seems to be in the dark. He mentions that Chuka is a rare type of elf, and there's not much known about her kind, making it even harder for them to figure out what's going on. Itami, while still trying to process all of this, realizes that something is definitely off with Chuka. The next morning, Rory visits Chuka and happily shares that she's enjoying her time with the Japanese Defense Forces. Despite staying in temporary lodging, the place has everything they need like food, water, and even a bath. She confesses that she's starting to prefer this place over the forest where they used to live. However, when she looks at Chuka for approval, she notices the sadness in her friend's eyes. Chuka sighs and explains that one day they would have to fend for themselves and she doesn't know how to survive on her own. She even fears that if things go wrong, she might have to sell herself to the hill soldiers for survival. Rory is shocked and tries to reassure her, but before she can say anything, Lele arrives and tells them to follow her. The three girls make their way to a deserted area where they find numerous dead dragons scattered around. Lele explains that Itami had asked her to collect dragon scales. When Chuka wonders if these scales are worth anything, Lele reassures her that while the defense forces don't need them, they would never need to sell themselves for food, as Chuka feared. The next day, Itami tells Kurata that he's collecting the dragon scales to help the refugees learn about trade in the special region. His goal is to teach them how to look after themselves and survive on their own without having to depend on others. Itami's kindness has not gone unnoticed by Chuka, and she is genuinely grateful for his help. With that, they all pile into a jeep and set off on their journey toward the land of Italica, ready for whatever comes next. As Itami and his team make their way to Italica, Karuta suddenly informs him that a large amount of smoke is rising from a nearby mountain. Itami asks Karuta if there's a highway that leads toward the smoke, and Karuta points out a road that runs straight toward the mountains. With his experience, Itami quickly realizes that the smoke is coming from the region around Italica. Lele suggests that the smoke could be from something large being burned in the area. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Itami orders his units to stay alert and closely monitor their surroundings, keeping an eye on the skies as well. While Itami is in the middle of the conversation, Rory licks her lips in excitement, saying that she can smell blood nearby. It turns out that Princess Pina and her military unit are raiding the kingdom of Italica. The clash of swords, blood, and bodies can be seen everywhere. After the princess's forces manage to take control of the castle, things start to settle down. Her assistant, looking confused, asks why they are dealing with bandits in Italica. Pina, who is visibly frustrated, grits her teeth and admits that she is just as clueless as her. She was only told that a group of armed invaders was attacking various territories. The princess is angry because she is misinformed that Japanese forces were invading the territories, which caused her to rush to Italica. However, when she arrives, all they find are the remains of her own troops who have now turned to banditry. She orders her assistant to ask everyone to not slack off and get ready to deal with any more invasions that might take place in Italica. She also asks them to dispose of the bodies of the dead bandits and make strong barriers, while she sends a message to the royal army who will be coming to their aid within 3 days. Saying this, the princess heads towards the castle's resting rooms where the butler asks her if there is a way to avoid any more fighting. The princess replies that if they stop fighting, they will lose everything, their men will be killed and women will be assaulted. So to avoid that, they need to fight as much as they can to survive. After saying this, the princess heads to her chambers to rest, asking the butler and the maid to let her know if anything important happens. She feels miserable as she climbs into bed, unable to shake the disappointment. She never imagined her first battle would end in disaster. As a child, she always dreamed of becoming the kingdom's greatest knight and train under the best instructors. Her goal was to create her own order of knights, with the help of her mentor, Gray. After 7 years of hard work, she finally established her order, but her father never allowed her to be involved in real battles. Instead, her knight order was only used for ceremonial purposes as honor guards. Hours later, the maid and butler wake her up with urgent news. They tell her that a group of people has arrived at the castle gates, but they can't tell if they are friends or enemies. The princess quickly gets up and rushes to the gate. Peering through a peephole, she sees a jeep and people stepping out. As she watches closely, she realizes that this isn't just any group of warriors, but among them are Lily, the true mage, Rory, the infamous Reaper, and a rare elf girl. She is caught between two choices, if she should open the gates for the strangers or drive them away because they might be enemies. After thinking for some time, the princess decides to open the gates, and as soon as she does that, she knocks Itami off in a hurry. The elf girl scolds her for being a bird brain and opening the gates without realizing that someone might be standing close to it. Soon, Itami wakes up and asks his comrades to be on standby, and he will contact them when necessary. He looks at the princess and asks her to explain the situation. Princess Pinya explains that the fortress city of Italica is located at the crossroads of the Tessaria and Appia highways, making it a central commercial hub. Its important position allowed Italica to thrive for generations, ruled by the Imperial nobility. However, everything changed when the last ruler of the city passed away unexpectedly, leaving behind 3 daughters who soon found themselves in a bitter struggle for control of the throne. The eldest and middle daughters, both married to powerful families, continued to fight against the youngest sister, Mui, for the right to rule. The power struggle between the sisters became more intense, and no one could establish clear leadership. The situation grew even worse when the Empire sent military forces to another world. Each noble family was required to send their troops to assist in the battle, but tragically, none of the commanders returned. With their forces depleted and no one to lead the city's defense, the security of Italica rapidly declined. Bandits and hostile forces took advantage of the weakened state of the city, and even defending its walls became an increasingly difficult task. Italica, once a stronghold of power, now faced an uncertain future, its people living in fear as the struggle for control continued. Soon, Princess Pinya opens the doors to a chamber, and when they enter the room, Itami and the others are shocked to see the youngest daughter, Princess Mui, sitting on a throne. The youngest princess is just 11 years old, too young to be the next ruler and take on the insane responsibility. Pinya tells them that as the Princess Mui is very young, she is asked to take care of the kingdom in her place. Later, Itami tells Pinya that he will help Italica and Princess Mui because the current situation is making things difficult for everyone. They need to establish peace in order to sell dragon scales and earn to live well. The princess allows Itami and his team to take control of the south gate and help them out. Soon, Itami places his soldiers on the roof of the castle, and he carefully inspects the surroundings. Soon, he notices a bunch of men on horses who are called the scouts of the enemies who are after the south gate. His comrade informs him that the enemy doesn't have enough men to surround the city, and the north side stands against the sharp cliff, so they are probably going to arrange their troops on the 3 gates. Itami is a bit worried because he just has 12 soldiers to guard the south gate, and now they can't back off because they have already proposed to help the princess. Itami quickly orders his troops to take position, making sure that they are carefully placed. At midnight, the enemy launches a surprise attack from the eastern gates, and Itami quickly realizes that the bandits didn't target the south gate because they are not just ordinary criminals but trained soldiers. Meanwhile, the princess and her knight unit are engaged in a fierce battle with another group of bandits at the eastern gate. As the night grows darker, arrows begin to rain down on the castle, causing panic among the defenders. The situation becomes more chaotic as they soon discover that the bandits are not alone and have a spirit wielder, who has joined the assault, adding an even greater threat to the conflict. A brutal fight breaks out between the defenders and the bandits, with both sides suffering heavy losses. The princess, watching the bloodshed unfold before her eyes, is overwhelmed by the senseless violence. Her knights struggle to maintain control, and the castle's defenders are pushed to their limits. The sight of her people falling fills the princess with a deep sense of helplessness and guilt. She desperately wishes she could call for Itami and his team to come to their aid, but a wave of guilt washes over her. She feels responsible for sending them on what now seems like a suicide mission on the northern gates. The bandits slowly take control of Italica, spreading destruction everywhere. They kill and harm the locals, leaving fear and chaos behind. The Imperial army tries its best to stop them but has fewer soldiers, making it harder to hold back the attackers. The soldiers fight bravely, but the large number of bandits starts to overwhelm them. The situation becomes worse when the commander of the Imperial army is caught in the middle of the fight. Despite his efforts, he is killed, leaving the soldiers and the people of Italica in shock and fear. The news of the commander's death spreads quickly, causing panic among the city's defenders and citizens. Without their leader, the defenders feel hopeless as the bandits grow stronger and move closer to taking over the castle. During this chaos, the leader of the bandits steps forward and gives a speech to encourage his men. He proudly declares that their chance for revenge after their loss at Arnus Hill has finally come. He reminds them of their brothers who died in that battle and promises to make the Imperial army pay for it. The bandit leader's words excite his men, filling them with energy. He promises that none of the Imperial soldiers will be spared and calls them traitors who deserve to die. His speech pushes the bandits to fight even harder, while the defenders of Italica struggle to protect the city. Soon, news arrives that Norman, the commander of the Imperial army, has died. This causes panic among those around the princess, who urge her to seek help from the Japanese defense forces. The situation grows more desperate as the battle continues, and it becomes clear that the castle gates will soon be vulnerable, leaving them open for bandits to storm in and kill everyone inside. Her advisor suggests that the only option is to call for the special forces and begin evacuating the people immediately to ensure their safety. Time is running out, and a decision must be made quickly. On the other hand, Rory can no longer hold herself back from fighting the bandits, so she runs off in the direction of the eastern gates. Seeing this, Itami and his comrades follow her in their jeep, while Itami orders the 401 reinforcement to be on standby on the eastern gates and wait for his orders. Soon the combat helicopters of 401 reinforcements of Japanese forces start heading towards the eastern gates to take their positions. Soon, Rory reaches the combat grounds and stands in the middle of the fighting men who are shocked to see her. She uses her invincible hand axe to kill the rogue bandits and quickly starts taking over the battleground. Suddenly, on Itami's orders, the combat helicopters start shooting the bandits with missiles and machine guns. They slowly start destroying the bases of the enemy, disarming them quickly and forcing them to run for their lives. The coward bandits are no match in front of the well-trained 401 combat helicopters. Soon, Itami and his team also reach the eastern gates and start showering bullets on the enemy, causing them to run like wet cats. Seeing that Itami has her back, Rory starts fighting again, killing the bandits like insects under her feet. Finally, she kills the commander of the bandits' army, and the crowd erupts in chaos after the death of their leader. The commander of the combat helicopters asks Itami to evacuate quickly from the castle because they will be targeting the enemy's bases in 10 seconds. After destroying the bases, the soldiers drop from the helicopter and start with their rescue missions while the princess stares in awe at the strange machine that can kill people in seconds. The bandits are wiped out and the soldiers start working on finding the locals and restoring the homes of the people. The princess's advisors visit her to give her the news that they have finally won. The princess declares that it was the Imperial army that won, but the Japanese defense forces and the priestess of Emloy, Rory, who have successfully managed to save them all. She adds that the Japanese defense forces are the enemy of their kingdom who have taken over Arnus Hill, and she wonders if she has called a more dangerous force in order to save Italica. She dreads that if the Japanese defense forces would have been their enemies, then she, along with her comrades and advisors, would have been taken prisoners, and the Empire's most important agricultural area, Italica, would have been taken over by these forces. After everything is over, they all assemble in the royal court of Italica in front of Princess Mui. Itami allows them to take control of the prisoners, but on a condition that they will be treated with respect. Soon, the negotiations get over and the defense forces ask the princess to take care of diplomatic, delegation, and security expenses. The defense forces will not occupy the city of Italica and will leave immediately. However, before leaving for the base camp, the girls on Itami's team go off to sell the dragon scales to the merchant. After a bit of negotiation, Lely is able to get 30,000 silver coins for 200 dragon scales. But for the rest 10,000 silver coins, the merchant gives them some information on the recent events to compensate for it. After the business, they all are on their way back to the hill, but suddenly the jeep stops with a screech and the driver tells Itami that he can see smoke again. When they use their binoculars to look closely, they notice that it is a girl riding a horse. The strange girl has blonde hair, wearing a tiara, followed by other hot chicks. When Itami looks closely, he can see the flags of the Imperial Kingdom, and that clearly means that the girls are the rows of Order Knights of the Kingdom that the princess earlier told them about. The blonde knight stops in front of the jeep and angrily asks if they are the enemy from another kingdom. When Itami steps out to explain, another knight puts a sword on his neck, asking him to shut up. When Itami tries to speak again, the knight slaps him, causing the other soldiers to take their position to shoot the rude knights. But Itami asks them to leave him and run, and they all quickly turn their jeeps and drive away, while Itami is left as a hostage with the knights. The knights beat Itami black and blue before taking him to the princess. When the princess sees Itami in a bruised state, she throws a glass of wine across the face of one of the knights, calling them a bunch of idiots who kidnapped their savior Itami. She sadly tells them that they have violated the treaty that was signed between the Special Defense Forces and the city of Italica, and that clearly means that the defense forces can give a call for war against Italica. On the other hand, Itami's team and the others are desperately waiting on the border of Italica for Itami to return. The general, who is second in command, declares that they will wait till sunset, and if Itami doesn't return, then they will enter the castle to bring him back. While they are talking, Itami's closest assistant tells the girls that Itami is a ranger, and they are shocked to hear this. Itami, who seems like a manga-obsessed psycho, is actually a well-trained ranger who has undergone hellish training and has a mind and body of steel. After some time, they decide to enter the castle since there is no sign of Itami. The elf girl uses her sleep magic to sing a lullaby to send the guards in a deep sleep, and soon everyone falls asleep. She quickly climbs the roof of the castle and signals the soldiers to enter the premises, and the soldiers quickly take their positions. Inside the castle, Itami is bandaged and put to sleep in order to help him recover. When he wakes up, he is a bit surprised to see himself surrounded by girls who look like mythical creatures. One of them has cat ears while the other has the appearance of a rabbit. Soon, the head maid enters the room and assures Itami that he is the chambers of the princess, and she has ordered the servants to take good care of him. She also informs him that the knights who treated him so poorly on their way to Italica are also harshly punished, and they all are so grateful to him for saving their beloved town. The maid seriously comments that someone who saved the kingdom should not have been treated harshly, so if he wishes to destroy the city of Italica in order to take revenge, then also they will support him, but you shouldn't harm Princess Mui. Itami quickly assures them that he will not do anything stupid like that. The maid smiles and tells him that until he recovers, the 4 housekeepers will take care of him and Itami and ask them for anything he needs. Soon, the bunny ear girl tells everyone that someone is trying to forcefully open the bars of the window of Itami's room. The head maid replies that they might be Itami's friends, and if they turn out to be someone else, then they can deal with them in their usual way. When a confused Itami asks about the girls irving him, the maid replies that one of them is a warrior bunny named Mimina, the other is the cat named Persia, the third one is the Medusa named Araya, while the last one is a human named Moan. She warns him that Medusa can take away people's energy with her hair, but she has been trained to guard Itami while he is recovering. Suddenly, Itami's soldier comrades enter the room ready to attack if anyone tries to stop them from taking away their captain. But their jaws drop on the floor when they see that Itami is being treated like a king with unusual girls serving him. Soon, the soldiers start getting along with Itami's caretaker girls and the head maid. The men are trying to flirt with the girls while the head maid keeps clinging on to Rory in order to get her blessings. Seeing the lively atmosphere around him, Itami comments that since everyone is friendly here, they can stay in Italica for some more time and have a good time together in the name of cultural exchange. The princess calls the Knights of the Rose Order and speaks to the blonde knight. She tells her to take responsibility for treating Itami poorly and suggests using her charm to win his forgiveness. This, the princess hopes, will help them move past the incident peacefully. Reluctantly, the blonde knight agrees. She dresses in revealing clothes and goes to Itami's room, expecting to be him alone. But when she enters, she is shocked to see a lively gathering. The room is filled with people chatting and laughing, and Itami is in the middle of it all, completely ignoring her. The blonde knight feels humiliated. She reminds herself that she is the second daughter of the respected house of Palestia, yet Itami doesn't even look at her. This bruises her pride, and anger quickly takes over. In a fit of rage, she rushes toward Itami and slaps him hard across the face, leaving a large bruise. The commotion causes them to be brought before the princess. When the princess sees the bruise on Itami's face, she is shocked. After learning the blonde Meg is responsible again, the princess sighs in frustration. She starts to worry, fearing that Itami might retaliate by ordering his forces to attack them, risking their fragile peace. The soldiers tell the princess that they are taking Itami with them as she is free to deal with her knights on her own. They also tell her that Itami has to present a report before their national senate, so he has to be present there. When the princess hears about the senate, a sense of fear washes over her. She is worried that Itami might complain about her knight's misbehavior and the Japanese senate might call for a war against Italica. So the princess quickly stands up from her throne and declares that she will tag along with Itami to the senate. The next morning, Itami, his comrades, and Princess Pina travel to the senate. As they approach Arnus Hill, the princess notices soldiers training with their guns and looks puzzled. Curious, she asks Lely if these soldiers are wizards using magic. Lely shakes her head and explains that the soldiers are not wizards but use weapons called guns. She describes guns as cylindrical tools that create explosions using lead bullets. These weapons, combined with their training, make the soldiers extremely effective in battle. Lely adds that their unique way of fighting was the reason they defeated the Imperial forces at Arnus Hill. As the princess glances outside, her curiosity turns into fear. She sees tanks, helicopters, and soldiers carrying guns, which appears strange and terrifying to her. Overwhelmed, she compares these machines and weapons to monsters from another world, finding it hard to believe humans could create such things. After reaching the base camp, the princess is taken to the Lieutenant General Hazama, who is in charge of all the defense activities in the special region. Lely also accompanies her as the translator and mediator. When the general asks why a high-born princess of the Imperial region has come to visit them, she apologetically replies that her forces behaved inappropriately with Itami, so she has come to ask for forgiveness. The general replies that he has read the reports, and there might be a misunderstanding at the lower levels. The princess nods her head in agreement and replies that she is deeply sorry for that. The general says that the princess has been kind enough to serve as the mediator between the Empire and the defense forces, and if the treaty is causing them problems, that they can always rethink the terms and come up with a new agreement. The princess quickly replies that the current terms of the treaty are fine. The general's assistant tells the princess that Itami has asked them to consider the bruises as part of his duty in the special region and not by the princess and the knights. Later that evening, Itami sits in his cabin, grumbling about how his duties in the special region keep him from attending any anime events. He leans back in his chair, staring at the ceiling and wishing for a break from his busy life. As his eyelids grow heavy and he is about to drift off to sleep, a knock at the door startles him. When he opens the door, he finds Lely standing there, looking completely exhausted. Her eyes droop and her voice is soft as she explains that she has spent the entire day interpreting for the defense forces and the people of her kingdom. She asks if he can take her back to her camp. Itami glances at the clock and frowns. It's already late and arranging for a jeep at this hour would be difficult. He suggests she stay in his cabin for the night and get some rest. Lely hesitates for a moment but then nods, too tired to argue. Before she can settle properly, Lely slumps to the floor and falls asleep right there. Itami sighs, shaking his head with a small smile. Carefully, he picks her up and places her on his bed, tucking her in so she can rest comfortably. He pulls a chair close to the bed and sits down, intending to keep an eye on her for a while. However, the day's events have drained him as well. It doesn't take long before he falls asleep, resting his head on the edge of the bed. The next day, the elf girl, Rory, Lely, and the wizard get ready to cross the gates and go to Japan for further questioning by the Japanese officials. To everyone's surprise, the princess also joins them along with the blondie knight, saying that she too will be accompanying them in secret. Soon the group crosses the gates to reach Japan, and they all are shocked to see the high-rise buildings and skyscrapers everywhere. The princess wonders that the empire that has started a war against a civilization that is capable of building sky-touching structures will surely be defeated. While Itami is getting the paperwork done, a man with curly hair introduces himself as Komikado, a representative from the intelligence headquarters, and he has been asked to take them safely. Itami looks at him with suspicion and asks if he is from the public safety department. The strange man laughs in response and replies that someone intelligent like Itami can figure out a person's identity with ease. Komikado takes out his notepad and starts telling everything about Itami and his background. He said that he looked into Itami and found out that he had the second lowest grades in his class during the officer training, and he barely avoided last place because another trainee got injured. He graduated but was rated just barely passing, and his Hyo got pissed and threw him into Ranger Officer School, which he finished somehow. For some reason, Itami was transferred to Narashino after that. Poor personal evaluations kept him at second lieutenant, but after the incident in Ginza, he was promoted to the first lieutenant. But what's fascinating is, a slacker like Itami with a horrible reputation on duty ended up becoming AS Ranker, a group of soldiers specially modeled after the US Army's Green Berets and Delta Force. Itami looks at him and replies that if a colony of ants gets rid of the laziest one, then the other one will start being lazy instead, so lazy people are necessary. The stranger laughs at Itami and mocks him by saying that if slackers like him start getting important positions, then they are definitely doomed. Soon, they all hop into a bus which takes them through the city, which has markets and Christmas trees. The guests from the Imperial region are fascinated to see the strange buildings with people inside. They stop at a clothing store to buy a bunch of clothes for the guests so they can be dressed in formals to visit the Diet building, then they go for a quick lunch. After some time, they reach the Senate building where the princess is introduced to the assistant of the Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary. They all proceed to take their respective seats. The assistant briefs them about the proceedings, saying that they are going to hold a conference to make sure that they all are on the same page. They will discuss and decide on a number of matters here beforehand. Soon the news spreads in Japan that after 4 months of the Ginza incident, the first question and answer session will be held in the Diet today. In addition to the Defense Forces personnel who have been there in the special region along with the refugees who are invited. In the evening, a press conference is arranged for the guests and Defense Forces. As soon as Itami enters with the refugees, the camera shutters go off in excitement and soon the deliberations begin. Soon a woman walks up to the podium to accuse the SDF forces for not being quick enough in saving the lives of the people who were killed by the dragon in the Ginza region. To answer her question, Itami calmly replies that since the dragon was stronger and more powerful, the SDF couldn't do much. Moreover, they lacked sufficient firepower which bounced off the dragon's body. They really wanted to have a stronger weapon like a charged particle beam, a railgun, a graviton bomb, or something like that. The proof of the dragon's strength lies in the scales collected from the special region, and they have concluded that the scales are as strong as tungsten, and it exhales high-temperature flames. So demanding 0 casualties when fighting a monster like this is unreasonable. The woman asks Lely if she faced any inconvenience living in the refugee camps created by the SDF forces in the special region. Lely calmly replies that all of her clothing, food, shelter, work, and spiritual needs are taken care of at the camp. The woman asks if the SDF's response in any way contributed to the 150 casualties, and Lely denies. The woman asks the elf if her ears are real, and the elf girl replies that they are, and as soon as she reveals her ears, the crowd goes wild to see a real elf girl. The shocked woman asks if they faced any issue with the SDF handling the dragon attack. The elf girl replies that she is not sure about that because she was unconscious at that time. Next is Rory's chance, and the first question she is asked is her name. After this, she's asked to describe the life in the refugee camps, and Rory replies that it's very simple. When she wakes up, she prays, and at night, she sleeps peacefully. She uses her time to eat and kill and make offerings to Emloy, the god of war. The woman asks that according to the reports, 1/3 of the refugees were killed in the dragon attacks, while the SDF suffered no casualties or injuries. So the people who should have defended them with their lives put their own safety first, and in the end, the civilian's life was put in danger. After asking this question, the woman smirks, thinking that she has finally revealed the true colors of the SDF forces. But suddenly, Rory screams in the mic, calling the woman an idiot. Rory goes on to tell how well the defense forces fought with the dragon, keeping the refugees safe behind their shields. Moreover, she asks what's wrong with the soldiers trying to save their lives because if they die needlessly, then who is going to protect the common people who do nothing but sit in comfort and complain? She adds that the forces fought the fire dragon and came back alive, so the first thing they should do is praise them. Also, Itami's squad managed to save 3/4 of the refugees with their lives, and if she can't even understand that the soldiers of a country have a very hard time, and they succeeded in doing something no one else can do, then the woman is stupid and dumb. The woman, visibly angered by Rory's answer, lashes out at her, calling her a rude brat who doesn't know how to talk to her elders. She mocks her for her lack of values and tries educating her about the norms and behaviors of Japan. When Rory sees the woman being a brat again, she gets ready to teach her a lesson, but to avoid any further escalation, Itami quickly steps in and tries changing the topic. He takes the mic and informs everyone that Rory might look too young for her age, but she is the oldest amongst all the people in the room. The woman stands up again and asks how old she is, and Rory replies that she is 961 years old and the elf girl is 165 years. Lely takes the mic again and explains that she is a human who is 15 years old, while Tuka, the elf girl, is a rare species of elf fairies who live 1,000 years, and Rory is a demigod who has stopped aging, so the concept of lifespan doesn't apply to her. Later, the princess is asked to take back the prisoners who were taken by the Japanese government after the Ginza incident. While returning back, Itami takes the refugees via subway, and clearly they are fascinated to see a train running underground. Soon they meet up with Komikado, who is taking them to Tokyo, from where they will change trains. They are doing this as a part of their plan to work undercover and find some important information. When they reach Tokyo, they are told that the subway is not working anymore because of an accident. Komikado tells Itami that it is something fishy because there might be a few people who can attack them. Soon an informer tells them to go to Akihabara, and Itami takes them all to their ex-wife's home to keep them safe. They all are shocked to see that Itami has an ex-wife too, someone who is crazy enough to marry a psycho like Itami. Itami tells his wife everything and how they are in danger of being attacked, so she replies that she doesn't want to land herself in danger too, and everyone agrees with her. Itami says that he had to dump Komikado on their way because the man is more suspicious than anyone and looks like he is leaking information, and there is a possibility that they are being tailed. At night, while everyone is asleep, Itami's ex-wife Risa is busy writing a manga which she has to submit the next day. One of the soldiers asks Risa about her marriage with Itami. She replies that she and Itami are friends for now. She says that they didn't split up because they were fighting and they were a bit different from the usual couples. The next day, they all decide to go to places which are filled with a lot of people to avoid getting in danger. So the group splits up in two. Itami and Risa will take the first group for shopping to Shibuya, while the other soldier is taking the princess and the knight to the library so they can learn about the literature of Japan. Soon they are in the middle of Shibuya, helping Rory to pick a dress for herself and getting them trendy clothes. On the other hand, the princess is shocked beyond words to see a building full of books. While they all are busy with Japan sightseeing, Itami goes on to meet his longtime mentor, the former defense minister of Japan. Finally, they all gather together at the subway to go to the hot springs together. After traveling for a long time, Itami and his group finally arrived at the hot springs. Everyone was excited to relax and enjoy the baths. However, their peaceful time didn't last long. Rory felt like someone was watching them. When she looked out of the window, her sharp eyes saw a man standing far away, 450 meters from the bathhouse. The man was one of the soldiers keeping an eye on them. The soldier quickly reported to his bosses, including the former defense minister. He told them that one of the guests had spotted him from such a great distance. This made it clear that she was not an ordinary person, but someone very dangerous. What the group didn't know was that a secret military team was watching both the special region guests and Itami's movements. Close to the hot springs, Japanese and foreign forces were holding a military training exercise. The loud noises from the drills made it hard for Rory to rest. While others in the group were sleeping, Rory stayed awake. The sounds and the tense feeling around the place made it impossible for her to relax. Later that night, new orders came for the Japanese military. The higher-ups told them to stop all training and return to their base. This sudden decision showed that a political deal had been made between the Japanese and foreign governments. The agreement seemed to involve protecting the special region guests and avoiding any trouble. Inside the bathhouse, Rory seems to be in a difficult position as she can't stop herself from pouncing on Itami. A reluctant Itami tries to save himself from a horny Rory, but she keeps him pinned on the ground. However, fortunately, Itami is saved by a phone call, and he immediately pushes Rory away and jumps towards the phone to escape. When Rory curiously asks what device is this, he answers that it is called a cell phone, and it is used to make calls for important matters. Rory sulks and says that his tools should learn when not to interrupt. Itami looks at the incoming message and realizes that it is from the Ministry of Defense, while outside the inn, the Japanese and foreign soldiers come face to face. Rory jumps out of the window and lands in front of the two opposing forces. She moves quickly, using her hand axe to dodge their attacks with ease. As she runs at full speed, the soldiers fire at her, but their shots miss. Instead, they hit each other in confusion. Rory's swift movements and unpredictable actions leave both sides struggling to keep up. It becomes clear that the foreign soldiers were sent to confront the Japanese soldiers, but Rory interrupts their plans. She takes full advantage of the chaos, turning the situation against them. One injured soldier manages to report back to his superiors, explaining that they encountered the strange and dangerous visitors from the special region. Meanwhile, inside the inn, Itami is lying flat on the floor. He shouts for everyone to keep their heads down as bullets shatter the glass windows. The sound of gunfire fills the air, echoing loudly around them. Itami tries to make sense of what's happening, but the noise outside only adds to the confusion. Through the chaos, she hears Rory's wild laughter as she continues her rampage. The gunshots and Rory's relentless attacks make it clear that the situation is far from under control. After some time, they all walk out of the inn and Risa is scared like a cat after seeing blood and bodies all around the hot springs premises. She asks what's going on, and Itami replies that the public safety department will be here soon, but they cannot wait here any longer. He orders his comrades Tomita and Kurabayashi to bring all the weapons they have and get everybody's stuff together. Tomita asks the princess and the blondie knight to change their clothes and get ready to go. Itami walks closer to an injured Rory, worried that she is badly hurt, but Rory reassures him that her body will regenerate again. She adds that demigods don't die. At midnight, the group walks out of the hot spring area, but they are glad that no one was hurt badly and the defense ministry has ownership of the inn. Otherwise, they would have become a victim of the foreign forces. Soon, they see a vehicle with a driver from the defense forces, and Tomita quickly points the gun at his temple, asking him to get off the jeep. They drive the driver out of the jeep, and Lele puts him to sleep with her magic. After taking the jeep, they drive away, and Itami says that they will not go to the Ginza region as it might be dangerous for them. Everyone is panicking at the moment, and a feisty Tomita asks Itami why the hell they are running and hiding around like rats. Itami takes a long pause and replies that he doesn't know, and a frustrated Tomita points her gun at Itami, warning him to quit screwing around or she will shoot him. The princess asks if she has been sold to the Japanese government because in a span of 2 days, they have changed vehicles and destinations several times like they are on a run. She adds that they were here to mediate negotiations between a country called Japan and the Empire. In other words, they are here for peace talks, but she's beginning to believe that a group of people do not want peace and want to fight with them. After some time, they reach the military base of Japanese defense forces to take a break from the long journey. While the three girls are out buying some drinks for themselves, Risa decides to tease Itami a bit. She asks him if he likes the elf or he likes the gothic warrior based on her personality, or he wants to protect the platinum blonde, and Itami agrees to all her questions and receives a punch on his head from Risa. After everyone is back in the jeep, Risa uses her laptop to find out about their schedules for the next day. She tells Itami that Rory, Tuka the elf, and Lely have to visit the Ginza Memorial. After that, they are going back to the special region. She excitedly tells Itami that the people love their responses in the diet and a lot of people have become their fans. That means with all the people around them in the Ginza region, it will be hard for those agents to attack them in broad daylight. Risa says that she will hack into the official website and make sure that she uploads more information on other sites by lunchtime. The next day at 10 a.m., the people of Japan are shocked to hear the news of the sudden resignation of their prime minister and his hospitalization. At a distance, the foreign agents under Agent Graham are on their positions in order to kidnap the people from the special region. Agents from other two countries can also be seen nearby, making it a difficult mission since they already lost their team at the hot springs and the prime minister has also resigned, which means no more negotiations. Graham tells his team that as soon as the people from a special region appear, they will cause panic in the crowd, cut TV connections, and kidnap them. Soon, Itami reaches the Ginza region, surprised to see so many people near the gate to catch a glimpse of the special guests. But before Itami can stop Rory, she jumps out of the jeep and the crowd cheers for her like they have seen some real-life manga character. They are excited to see a girl from another world and start showering her with bouquets and flowers. Itami realizes that if they won't act now, then the Prime Minister's resignation and Risa's effort will all go to waste. He jumps out of the van and asks for Risa to take the vehicle and abandon it somewhere, promising that he will meet her as soon as he can. After that, he orders his two comrades, Tamida and Kurabayashi, to guard their 5 guests from the special region, and if anyone tries to hurt them, then they are free to shoot. The crowd makes way for the guests while the news channels announce that the girls who had appeared on the diet have arrived in the Ginza region, and after laying flowers at the memorials, they will be returning to the special region. The city is crowded with their fans waving and giving flowers to them. Meanwhile, on the other side, Graham is troubled because he can't carry the mission with so many people surrounding the guests. Suddenly, Komakato, the public safety head, pays a visit to them, and he says that he is here to keep an eye on what other countries are up to. He warns Graham that he will be forced to stop them if he tries to act smart with him, letting him know that he has taken the CIA agents under arrest. A frustrated Graham immediately makes a call to tell the higher-ups that the entire CIA agents team has been arrested. After praying for the well-being of the dead at the memorial, the gates of the Ginza region open for the guests to leave for their empire, and the crowd cheers for them. Soon, they reach the special region and Itami is greeted by his soldier friends and everyone is overjoyed after a fun-filled trip. At night, the princess tells the Blondie Knight that she will make sure to put an end to the war because if they choose to fight, then they will surely lose their empire to the Japanese forces. She writes a letter to the emperor about her decision and decides to go back to the capital the next day. After 5 months of Ginza region incident, the Battle of Italica, and other events, the Arnus Hill is extremely peaceful. Different cultures and goods began to exchange in the shadow of the gate, and many different people began to gather in the Alnus. Slowly, the area of the refugee camps developed into a bustling town. Meanwhile, Princess Pina, who had seen Japan with her own eyes, returned to the palace to bring peace, and accompanying her was Sugawara Fuji, an ambassador of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and secret negotiations were about to begin. The princess tells her assistant that the empire's survival lies in making peace with Japan. Soon, a party is called at Lord Cicero's residence. The princess tells the ambassador that the Mardos clan has been one of the most important families of the empire and has tremendous influence at the Senate. He is one of the people who are willing to negotiate. After the massacre at Arnus Hill, the empire is rebuilding their army, but it will depend on the Senate to choose between war and peace. The faction of the Senate that wants peace is ready to limit the power of the emperor, the one who started this dangerous war. After dinner, the princess leads the ambassador to meet Lord Cicero, one of the most influential figures in their land. She introduces the ambassador as a representative of Japan, a mysterious and distant nation. The Lord, intrigued by this rare encounter, asks the ambassador to describe his homeland. The ambassador speaks with pride, explaining that Japan is a beautiful country blessed with 4 distinct seasons, lush forests, and pure, clean water. To further express goodwill, the ambassador presents a collection of gifts from Japan, offering them as a symbol of friendship and respect. Lord Cicero examines the gifts carefully. They are intricate and finely made, reflecting the high craftsmanship of Japan. Realizing the skill and talent of this nation, the Lord feels a twinge of regret for underestimating Japan before. He apologizes for not recognizing the country's abilities sooner. Curious about this distant land, Lord Cicero asks where Japan is located. The ambassador explains that Japan lies beyond the gate, a magical portal connecting their worlds. However, he also reveals a harsh truth. Japan is currently at war with the Empire, the ruling force of this world. This revelation shocks the Lord, and he immediately grows concerned about the implications of the princess's actions. He wonders why Princess Pina, a royal member of the Empire, would secretly ally with their enemy. Such actions, if exposed, could lead to severe punishment, even death. Sensing the Lord's worry, the ambassador calmly places a piece of paper on the table before him. The document contains important information, and it reveals that Lord Cicero's nephew is a prisoner in Japan. The ambassador explains that Princess Pina has agreed to act as a mediator between the two nations. Her goal is to negotiate a fair exchange of prisoners to ease tensions and save lives. However, this delicate plan requires support from key allies, including Lord Cicero himself. The ambassador asks the Lord to support Princess Pina in her negotiations with the Emperor. Her success depends on influential figures like Lord Cicero standing by her side. This is not only to ensure the safety of those involved, but also to foster understanding between the warring nations. In return for his support, the ambassador assures Lord Cicero that his nephew will be treated with care and that they will do everything possible to reunite them. Lord Cicero takes a moment to weigh his options. His loyalty to the Empire conflicts with his love for his family. Finally, he agrees to help the princess. His nephew's life is too important to ignore, and he sees the potential for peace in this alliance. Meanwhile, Itami and his assistant are walking through the newly set-up town, and Itami is happy that the camps have turned into a lively place. The assistant tells him that the sudden increase in size of the town means that they are short of people, and the only reason this place runs is because Princess Mui lends her maids. But unfortunately, it's a bad influence because some of the maids work at bars and some of the younger soldiers are becoming regulars at the bars. While they are talking, they come across Rory, who just drove away a creepy weirdo who was causing trouble. They all go to a nearby bar together to grab some drinks and spot the elf girl looking for someone. She waves at them and goes off to keep searching. The medic on Itami's team tells him that the elf girl goes off to look for her dead father every night and they must stop her, otherwise she might end up hurting herself. When Rory asks if they really should force the elf girl into accepting reality, the medic replies that they have to do that because people can't go on living for the future without accepting reality. Itami asks the medic to let the elf girl do whatever she wishes to because they will break the news of her father's death to her, then she might lose her mind. Moreover, they will soon be withdrawn from the special region and there will be no one to take care of her. Hearing this, the medic turns a bit sad and leaves the bar to head towards the base camp. While Rory and Itami are left alone, she tells him about her adventures and advises him to honor life as much as he can. Suddenly, a dark elf named Yao enters the bar and yells in anger at everyone for serving alcohol to kids. She assumes Rory to be a young kid and goes on to talk to her in a rude way. The visibly annoyed Rory asks what she is doing here, so the elf replies that she is the daughter of Dehan and she is looking for green people and she needs to have a talk with them. Then she calls Itami for getting Rory drunk, accusing him of being a pervert. Rory immediately hides behind the elf and pretends that Itami really forced her to drink with him. Seeing the angry elf ready to attack him, Itami runs off to save his life, while Rory jumps off the window while the dark elf is busy looking for Itami. After driving him away, the elf returns to the bar and asks about the green people she is looking for. The people at the bar soon understood the reason behind Rory putting on the act. She wanted to save Itami. The green elf has no idea that she drove the person she was looking for away, but no one dares to tell her because they all are scared of Rory. The dark elf shows the people a real adamantite diamond that she has prepared as a reward for anyone who will lead her to the green people. All the people in the bar gather around her to look at the big diamond, saying that anyone can buy land with that huge piece of precious stone, and they all start fighting about who will lead the dark elf to the green people. The dark elf looks at the fighting people and calmly tells them that they are not capable enough for the task and she needs someone who can slay a wounded fire dragon. Hearing about the fire dragon, the people slowly leave the bar, excusing themselves because they are too scared to deal with a bloodthirsty dragon. They, however, assure the dark elf that one of the green people might take her offer and kill the dragon for her. Soon the dark elf also walks out of the bar looking at the surroundings. When she listens closely, she can hear the singing of the wind spirits, clean water and clear air. The greenery around her is also lush and thick. She finds a spot for herself and lays down to spend the night there, continuously assuring herself that she will soon find someone who will kill the dragon and take revenge for her. The next morning, the dark elf wakes up to the sound of fighter jets of the Japanese Defense Forces. She looks at them for some time and then realizes that they are the green people she is looking for and is relieved that her clan will be saved. It turns out that a few months ago, the fire dragon had attacked the Schwartz village of the Dark Elf. With its fiery breath, it burnt the people and their homes, killing and injuring many. The dragon left it as a barren land with more than 220 dead bodies and burnt people lying all over the forest. The remaining clan people called a meeting to find a solution to the problem of the fire dragon. They placed their hopes on the dark elf named Yao, who had taken out one of the dragon's arms and drove it away. Since Yao is the strongest and wisest amongst them all, with a sword and skills that no one can match. Yao had lost all of her friends in her fiance to the wild dragon, so she's given the greatest treasure of the clan and asked to find the green people. With this, Yao promises to take the responsibility of bringing the green people with her, which turned out to be the Japanese Defense Forces. In the present, she follows the path of the helicopter and runs towards the base camp. She finds 2 guards at the entrance of the camp and tells them everything about her village and the dragon, but the guards can't seem to understand the language of Yoi. This makes Yao a bit disappointed, but then her mind goes off to Itami when she found him in the bar and he seemed to understand her language. Yao tries to find people who can find Itami, but all she comes across are thugs and rogues who just want to have fun with her. She soon finds a shop in which the Defense Forces soldiers are visiting and a dear girl is the shopkeeper there. She runs off to her and asks if she can help her communicate with the soldiers. The girl shows her a red book which serves as the guide to communicate in 2 different languages. She tells the elf girl that this book is a guide for talking to the green people and everyone who works here gets one for free. Yao begs the dear girl to let her have the book, but she's unable to accept her request because she might be fired for doing that. Hearing the commotion, 2 soldiers walk in, and when they see Yao, they realize that she is the same elf. They have been looking for her for a long time. After some time, Lely is called to help the soldiers interpret the language of Yao, who keeps saying that she needs their help. Lely walks inside the room and takes a seat in front of Yao and asks her to say whatever she wants to. Yao begs her to help her get a message delivered to the soldiers. She wishes to save her clan from the fire dragon, and for that she needs the help of the Japanese forces. Soon Lily takes Yao to the general, who says that he can't help her because her forest lies beyond the territory of the Empire, and being a foreign army, they can't cross those borders without permission. Entering there would mean a declaration of war, and she should give up. Yao begs that she doesn't need an entire army, but a few men who can defeat the dragon. The general replies that he can't give such an order because that would mean pushing his men to the edge of death. Soon, Lily is accompanying Yao in a jeep which is taking her back to her woods. The driver looks at the sad elf and tells her that Itami might help her. He is a person who can go to great extents for saving someone he cares about. Lily takes Yao to a tea shop which serves amazing tea for depression and anxiety. Soon, Yao starts sobbing her eyes out, saying that she can't go back without help from the soldiers. Her clan is looking out for her and hoping that she will return soon with the green people, but she's going back empty-handed. The military commanders sitting close to their table see Yao crying and desperately try to come up with a solution to help Yao and her clan. One of them suggested eliminating the dragon using minimum force. He suggests using missiles on the dragon and finally to send some infantry to confirm that the dragon is dead. After the tea break, Lily bids goodbye to Yao and she walks to the local office where the elf girl works as the manager. The elf girl looks at Yao and happily greets her, saying that she heard about her from Lily. The elf girl proposes to take her to the dorms. Itami meets the princess deep in the forest, where they sit down together to talk. The princess begins to share everything that has happened since she returned from Japan. She tells Itami about the challenges and changes in the kingdom and how things have developed since his departure. After catching up, the princess reaches for a romance manga, one she had recently received from Japan. Itami learns that the royal palace is greatly influenced by Japanese culture. The knights who work in the palace have also begun to enjoy Japanese foods. They spend their time savoring treats like Japanese sweets, desserts, and tea, making the palace feel more like Japan than ever before. Itami listens quietly, intrigued by how much Japan's culture has affected the kingdom. He hadn't expected such a blend of traditions, but the more he hears, the more he realizes how deeply the people have embraced these new customs. The princess smiles as she talks about how she has learned to appreciate these things, but she still has her responsibilities. She is focused on bringing peace between the Empire and Japan, hoping that one day the 2 nations will come together in harmony. With a final warm goodbye, she tells Itami that her work is far from over. Itami leaves the forest with a sense of purpose. As he steps into his carriage, the medic, who is traveling with him, shares some good news. The children from the Koda village have sent their thanks for his help in saving them. Itami feels a deep sense of satisfaction knowing that the children are safe and learning Japanese as well. The bond between Japan and the kingdom continues to grow, and it fills him with pride. As the carriage rolls forward, Itami gazes out of the window. He watches the scenery pass by, but his thoughts are far away. He smiles quietly to himself, knowing that both Japan and the kingdom have a long road ahead of them. He believes that peace can be achieved, and he feels hopeful that his efforts will make a difference. In his heart, he is determined to bring about that peace. The task may be difficult, but Itami feels more certain than ever that the future holds promise for both Japan and the kingdom. The journey continues, and as the landscape changes, so do his thoughts. Itami remains focused on the bigger picture, knowing that his work is far from over. He's just one part of a larger effort, but with each step, he feels he is getting closer to the goal of peace. The bond between the two nations is stronger than ever, and he believes that one day they will work together as allies. As the day comes to an end, Itami can't agree people she is looking for and is relieved that her clan will be saved. News to look forward, a quiet smile on his face as he reflects on all that has been accomplished and all that is yet to come. If you like this video, please consider subscribing and watch the videos on your screen next.